Hey YouTube, welcome back to part 11. I know it's been a while. I was on vacation, got sick over the summer a little bit, but we're back here now and we're going to try doing some weekly stuff. This tutorial is going to be based on separation and creating things like your main menu and your maps and that sort of stuff. We'll eventually take into things doing like pre-game lobbies and that sort of stuff in future tutorials, but this will at least show you how we can take our current tutorial scene and kind of break it out into something that's a little bit more manageable, something that's a little allows for expansion, that sort of stuff. So the first thing we're going to be doing here is we're actually going to be creating a couple more scenes. So if you come down to your scene folder here, we're going to just right click on the folder and then create scene, and I'm going to just call this one intro. And then if you just want to open up intro, and you guys can just delete this camera here. We're actually, so the goal here is the tutorial scene itself has everything that we really need. And so we're going to be just taking stuff out of that scene. So you can see how we take the one scene that was working for us, separate it out, and then it'll give us ability to do things like main menus and stuff where everything is kind of encapsulated in its own scene. Okay, so before we start, after you create the intro here, this is like the most important step. So we're going to add this scene. So when you add the scenes, you can hit add open scene, you can drag them in, your call. The biggest one that you need to remember is that the intro has to be first. So you're going to click and drag and bring this guy to the top. After that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the order. But make sure the intro is here at the top. And then, before we go any further, I'm going to paste a little video bubble thinger up in the top here. And if you guys have not checked out my mini guide on my scene management system, I want you to just pause the video right now, click on that bubble, and go check it out, because I'm going to be taking some scripts from there, mainly the scene management script. And if you guys haven't watched the Singleton video as well, I'll paste both up there, and I want you guys to go check out those two videos if you guys haven't, because I'm going to be taking those scripts. I'm not going to be explaining them. I'm just going to be using them in this case. And if you want the explanation on how they work and how to get the code and stuff, make sure you guys check out those right there. So yes, I'm going to go into utility, and I'm actually just going to bring these two scripts over. So I'm assuming that you guys have watched those videos now. So if you want to open up your file, whatever. So I'm bringing in the Singleton, I'm bringing in the scene management manager. I'm also going to go into code here just while I'm here. I'm going to right click on code. I'm going to create a folder for managers. So, I mean, this kind of looks confusing because it's like, well, we have a scene manager down here. This is like just like a utility thing. This is going to be mainly for all your scenes. So your main menu, I typically like to have a main menu manager, that sort of stuff. So I typically have them in their own manager namespace, where the scene manager is more of a utility thing because you're loading in scenes. Okay, so we're going to open up to intro. So after you delete the camera here and then saved it, if you just click, like left click on the intro and then hit Control D on Windows to duplicate, we are going to create 4 in total. So create 3 more, and then I'm going to just hit F2 to rename. I'm going to call this one level. I'm going to call this one main menu. And try and keep the naming the same, because when we create the scene list, it's going to be referenced based on the scene name here. And then we're going to create one called online. So you should have 5 in total now. Remember, the tutorial, we're no longer going to use the tutorial. We're using its parts. But I'm just going to keep it there for nostalgia's sake. And yeah. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into intro now. And oh, you know what? We should go to file and add the scenes here. So I'm just going to go and add level. And like I said before, as long as intro is at the top, it really doesn't matter. Maybe I'll put this at the bottom. Like, it really doesn't matter the order as long as intro is at the top. Make sure that they're in there. Exit out. Okay, so We're going to create a game object, empty game object. Make sure that your transform is at 0, 0. If you're ever doing like code-based like objects, or just anything really in general, make sure that you are resetting the transform. Because sometimes later down the road you might do some positional calculate or rotational calculation, and if you didn't reset your transform by right-clicking reset, sometimes you'll get some weird results. So we're going to call this one code, and I'm going to call this singletons. So the idea here is that these are just things that live throughout your app's life cycle, and they get imported right at the start because the first thing it loads is intro. And we are going to do a scene manager here, and we're going to add this another one called an application manager as well here in a minute. And then we're going to grab, so because we don't have a camera here, we need to grab the camera from tutorials. So if you actually just drag the scene, as long as you have, I believe 2017 and newer, it has this feature. You can drag two scenes into each other. We're going to left click the camera. I'm going to Control D to duplicate it. And then you're going to drag it. And you'll see like how it highlights differently. And you're going to just drag it and drop there. And then we're going to hit remove scene on tutorial. Hit don't save. Like we're going to be doing this a lot. And then just F2 here and rename it to main camera. So what this does is it basically, without having to like, with like larger prefabs and that sort of stuff, you don't have to like go copy all the settings. When you don't need to. Okay, so intro is almost done. Let's create the application manager here. So we're going to go into managers. I'm going to right click, create a script. I'm going to call this application manager. So like I said before, this is a singleton that lives through the whole life. Typically with the scene manager and the application manager tends to do things like show like the loading screen and that sort of stuff. I won't be doing the loading screen in this video, but you'll at least be able to see it. There we go. So we're going to make sure that the namespace is managers here, and that it's first time. I'm using a new IDE, so it's the first time it's trying to load some stuff in here. Cool. Okay. And okay, so just gonna get rid of that, and we're gonna open up. I'm gonna open up some other scripts. If you have to go to Unity and do it, that's okay. I'm gonna do it through on the side here. Visual Studio also has like this side panel as well, but like I said, you could go open the scripts from Unity. We are going to open up our network client. We're gonna need the network client, and we're gonna need the new utility for the scene manager here. Okay, cool. So after following the scene manager tutorial, this is the script you get. At the bottom I added a scene list here, and so we're actually going to copy this. Oh, I guess I copied. So you're gonna have to change your scene list. I copied this straight out of my working file. So your scene list here is going to have a couple different fields. It'll probably say scene 1, scene 2 if you're following the tutorial. And I just want you to go ahead and create some constant strings, one for the main menu, and it has to be named exactly what the scene name is here. All right. The constant's name doesn't, but the value in the string has to be named the same with capitalization and everything. So go ahead and make a, I'll just wait here for a second. Go make a main menu and a level and an online. And then we'll start her up again in a second. Okay, cool. So now that you have those three, whether you pause the video or not, it's your call. Now what we can do is we can start using this system. So in the start here, we're going to go into scene management manager, and you're going to have to bring in the namespace project.utility. You'll see that it gets brought in up here. It's a singleton, so we can say .instance, and then it has a load level. It takes in a string for the scene list, and you'll be asking, you'll be like, well, why don't you use the index number? You can use the index number, but a lot of times you're changing around scenes and stuff, and while it is faster, The string version guarantees that no matter the order, you're always going to be loading the correct scene. So that's why I use that way. But it's your call. I mean, if you want to use the index number, then go for it. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're going to load the main menu, and then it requires an action here. So this is like an inline function, arrow function. It changes per language what people call it. Basically, it's going to pass us the level name. And then we're going to say, okay, when you pass us the level name, you're going to do this code inside the curly braces. And in our case, we actually don't have any, so I'm just going to close that. So what is this doing? This is at the start, intro is going to load. Application manager, it's also going to be the intro scene. It's going to fire start. And then it's going to tell us to load the main menu. Okay, so it's going to, right off the bat, it's going to play intro, and it's going to load the main menu scene. And like the video for the scene management stuff, it's going to load it additively. So we're going to have both intro and main menu. So we're going to call this application manager. We're going to save. And if I hit play now, you'll see that because they're singletons, they go to the don't destroy unload. And this is why I do like the code dash singletons. And you'll see for main menu, it'll say code dash main menu. Because when you start working with stuff that leaves, in theory, the scene, because it goes to don't destroy unload, then if they're all called code, you would lose track of what it was. Because scene doesn't have anything in it, but you can see that the scene itself has been loaded. Okay, cool. Let's go into the main menu here then, and we'll start copying out stuff from tutorial. Okay, so like I said before, we're going to right-click, create an empty game object, reset that guy, and we're going to call this code-main menu. So while this doesn't have any singletons on it, what I define as a singleton for my managers is something that can live throughout the whole application's lifecycle. If it's like a scene that you're loading in and out all the time, so main menus, game lobbies, that sort of stuff, maybe a login screen, those are not singletons because the singleton's always going to live. So these are, while they're still called managers, they're not singleton managers. They're just kind of like one-offs. I prefer the term manager. Okay, cool. We're going to do the same. We're going to bring in tutorial here. And we're going to copy over the canvas and the event system. So I'm just going to copy both them, duplicate it, bring it into this scene, remove tutorial with don't save, and then I'm going to F2. And for canvases as well, I like to also do what they are, because sometimes I'll have multiple canvases, sometimes canvases will group up together, doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to put the event system inside main menu. Sometimes I have a miscellaneous folder in intro that I'll have one event system, because you only really need one event system throughout your whole game cycle for UI events. For this instance, though, I'm just going to put it inside the main menu for like ease of use. Okay, cool. So from tutorial, the join button kind of has some functionality that's now missing. So if you go down to the join button, I'm going to just kind of click. You have to like click in a weird spot. You have to like click in like the corners. So basically just highlight this guy and then remove it. And then it's like, hey, I need a missing object. And from our current tutorial scene, this feeds into network client, which has an action to tell the server that you want to join the game. We have to do a little bit of routing around that because the online is no longer going to be part of main menu. It's going to be its own thing. So we will come back to that in a second. What we do need is the menu manager itself. So we're going to go into manager, and we're going to create a menu manager. You can call it menu manager, you can call it main menu manager, it's up to you. We're going to call it that. Okay, we're going to put this in the manager's namespace. And then we are going to do a couple of things. So, first thing first, because we are loading the main menu at the start, and online and stuff is in its own scene, we cannot guarantee that online and main menu are loaded at the same time. So, the join now button now has to be turned off until we are actually online. We're going to assume that once we have loaded the online scene, we have connected. We're not going to do any checking to be like, oh, you know what, the server wasn't on. We can't turn on that button. That could be something for yourself or something we'll explore later. For now, though, we're just going to kind of go with the reference that, hey, you know what? Until online is loaded, we can't turn on this button. So we're going to have a serializable field here. And it's going to be private button. And it's going to bring in the Unity UI namespace here. You'll see up there. And I'm going to call this Q button. You can call it join now button, whenever you're really feeling. And in the start here, we're going to go into QButton.interactable. So because we're grabbing the button component, that itself is, if I go down to join now button, that's this script itself. So you'll see interactable here. And if you actually had transitions to like color tint, you could actually like disable the background, its color, and you can actually see like a visual difference. But for now, we're not going to do that. We're just going to set that to false. So that means that it won't accept button input. And when the main menu scene loads, we're also going to load online. Because at least in this instance, because we don't have like a login section, we're going to assume that the main menu is like we already know that the main menu is the next thing that comes after intro. So we're just going to load. We're going to say scene list because it's a static list. We're going to say .online. And before this is part of the scene manager at the bottom here. This is where I'm grabbing these names from. And like I said before, that's going to give us a level name. So this level name is returning basically what this guy is. It's going to return us online as the string. So if you wanted to do any checking somehow, then you knew which one was being loaded. I don't know. I had a reason for it before, but I don't. Sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I don't. Depends. I find I more use it like in game maps itself rather than like doing this part. So yeah, so we're gonna go into Q button here, and we're gonna say that it is now interactable. If you did the color tint, you would see that it would visually color tint. You probably won't see it because it's gonna be so fast loading in that it's that, but I mean, at least there's some safety there. And then because I was showing you that the button had to link to network client, we're actually just going to do a function here called onQ, and this would be that on join button where we're doing it. And if we looked at network client here, so I'm going to go to network client, scroll down to the bottom. This has our attempt to join lobby. So this is the function that we have to replicate. Now we can't just copy and paste this because network client comes from socket.io component. We don't have reference to the socket, so we have to actually get reference to the socket. So I'm going to be using a technique called lazy loading. I'll kind of give you a rundown as I do it. But the idea for lazy loading is that we take the hit rather than at the start, like here, trying to find the component. We're going to take the hit when we first need it. After that, we have a reference to it, and we won't need the hit. So we're going to be doing it that way. You can try and find a way inside your game that you can get a reference to the socket, whether it's the player or the network client itself. For this tutorial, we're just going to be going to find it. Just know that it can be improved in the future. It's not the best method, but it's going to be the method we're going to use. So in order to do lazy loading, we need reference to like a private local version. So that's going to be the socket.io component. That is where the emit, the on button, the on events, all that sort of stuff is actually stored. And we're going to call this socket reference. And you'll notice that actually brought in socket.io. And it's not serialized. It's just a private variable. Okay. And then we're going to make a property called private socket.io component. And this is with a capital S called socket reference. And then you're going to have your curly braces. If you've never used properties before, you're going to have your curly braces. And then inside there for properties, you can have getters and setters. In this case, we only need a getter. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to return, like my auto property did, it's going to return socket reference. Now, for lazy loading, we actually need to set socket reference somewhere, and we don't want to do it in start. So we're actually going to do it in the first time that you call this. So we're going to say return socket reference, and it's actually going to do the calculation if it's not null here. So we're going to say if socket reference is equal to null, that I want you, and this is just like an inline if statement. If you guys have never seen one before, we're going to say find object of type, and we already can guarantee that there's only going to be one of these guys. So that's going to, network client's going to bring in project.networking. And if it isn't null, means we have set it, right? It means we've called it the first time. We're just going to return socket reference again. Okay. Cool. So this is kind of the typical statement for lazy loading. Basically, we're going to return the private version. And it's being set. If it's not null, we're going to go find it.
I didn't understand that.
You didn't understand that. Okay. I'll go over it again. So we have our private socket reference, and then it's going to be equal to, if it's null, it's going to go find it. And it's looking for the network client here. We can look for network client because there's only ever going to be one. And what it's going to give us is actually the base class, because that's what we're looking to store. So it won't come with all this like junk in a sense. It'll only come with the functionality to do like the on, to do the emit, that sort of stuff, which is all we really need. And if it's not null, it's going to return the private reference back anyways. So yeah, so in the on queue here, we now can assume that we can safely get the online's version, right? Because online's loaded, we've said that this is interactable, meaning we can click on it. So that way, when we do click on it, we can guarantee, in a sense, that online's loaded and that a network client has been there. And we're going to say join game. So this is going to be very similar to here, right, where we're joining the game. Okay, cool. So we're going to save that guy. We're going to come back into our main menu. Let things compile and load. And we're going to go into code main menu. We're going to type in menu for menu manager, and it's going to be looking for a button. We're going to go to the join now button. We're going to drag and drop it in there. And we're going to also click on it, and we have to set up the functionality. So I'm going to drag and drop the code menu object in here. We're going to go to menu manager, and you'll see there's an on queue. And we'll go into here and we'll save. So it's a little bit different than tutorial. Basically, tutorial, everything was together. We were able to drag and drop and save reference to each other. This one, we have to grab references outside of other scenes and reroute it that way. Other than that, the main functionality works the same. Okay, let's move on to the next scene. So if you want to go play, just remember every time you go to play your game, you have to actually load in the intro scene. You can, in theory, play from main menu, but you'll get some weird instances. Like if I hit this, you should get an error that there's no reference to the start, which is going to be, if you went to start, it would be looking for seed management, and that's not there because there's no intro scene. So if you make that mistake and you're like, oh no, I got a null reference exception, just make sure you're starting from intro. Okay, so we're gonna go to intro. We're gonna start this guy, and I didn't have clear on play, so I clear on play. There we go. Okay, round 2. We're gonna go into intro, and you'll now see that it loads menu. And if we actually go down to, you didn't get to see it turn off, but you'll see it is interactable. There's nothing in online here, so we never got our connection and stuff, but you'll see that the scene itself has been loaded. Okay, so let's go set up online. So we'll go into online, and we're going to set up Nothing really, because we're going to grab everything from tutorial. Okay, so everything that really revolves around networking online is the code networking object as well as the server spawned objects, because we need a reference to it. So we're just going to grab those and then Control D to copy, bring those into online, and then close the scene. Remove scene, don't save. Okay, cool. And then I'm just going to rename so it doesn't have the ones. Make sure that your URL, like I was saying on the server before, if I go to index, you should have it saved. Which one is local, which one is your online server. Just remember that if you're working in the editor, you should be using your local server. Sometimes you'll test online stuff from it. But your online server is mainly for the clients that you distribute to people. So make sure you are switching back to the 127. Make sure you're using both. Indeed, don't be like working on code and then like push it to the online server every time, because you're just wasting time. Okay, so we have the code networking and then spawn object. You'll see it keeps its reference as well to server spawn. Prefab's alright because they're all assets inside of asset. And we'll get right into the one here as well, just because it's annoying. Okay, cool. We're going to save that guy. And if we go into intro now, and we hit play, you will see that we join, and we don't connect because we don't have our server on. So, let's go turn our server on. Alright, so the server is started. We'll go into intro. We'll hit play, and you'll see we made our connection to the server, and our client ID is a really weird thing. And if I go to the server right, we have our thing. And if I hit join now, you'll see that the player has left lobby 0, has entered lobby 1. This is standard functionality, right? But before, in our old stuff, we had we would auto, when you click that button, we would turn off the UI. So, and we also don't have a game level. So we need to create a new event that the server passes to the client to tell them to load the game level. In this case, we'll be loading the game level. In our next tutorial, we'll be loading them into a pre-game lobby, right? Because if you have a bunch of people joining your game, if they're all just going straight into the game, they're not guaranteed to get into game at the same time. This is why you see games like League of Legends have a loading screen where everybody loads together, and you always have to wait till everybody's done before the game starts. That way everybody starts the game at the same time, and it's super fair. In this case, I'm not fair, and we're just going to be going straight into the game, and just know that next tutorial we'll try and solve that issue. Okay, so let's do the server-side stuff. So if you open up your server here, we're going to open up our game lobby.js here. And this is a very, very simple fix. So we're going to go into our on-enter lobby, and we're going to go after we've added the connection, after we've done everything, right? Handle spawning any server objects. We're actually going to just go socket, and we need reference to socket, so we're going to say let socket equal to connection dot socket. We're going to say socket dot emit, and we're going to pass in load game. So in your case, and then I'm just saving. So in your case, in the future, you're going to want to pass things like your game lobby settings, that sort of stuff, because they're going to need to know what maps and stuff they need to load and all that jazz. In this case, we really don't care. We just want them to go into game. So we're hitting load game. But you just know in the future that you can pass that sort of information along. And we're going to restart the server. We need to go into our scripts here, network client, and we need to handle how we can grab that. Okay, so we are going to go into here. We're going to say load game. And then we're going to do an arrow function. And that's going to give us, we're just going to do a nice like debug log. We're going to say switching to game. And then we're going to use scene manager. So the beauty of singletons are super nice because you can kind of reference them anytime, as long as you have the namespace, right? And they're available. They're beautiful, but make sure you don't use too many of them, because you cannot, having too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So make sure you use it sparingly. Use it for certain things like, if you watch my singleton video, it goes over things like audio managers and scene managers and that sort of stuff are really good singleton cases. But not everything needs to be a singleton. Just know that. Okay, so we're gonna load level, and we're gonna say seamless.level. In this case, it's gonna be our one game level, and when that's loaded, it's gonna give us back level name. That's the same functionality we wrote now 3 times. And then what we're gonna do is this is one of the beauties why we have this function. So once level is loaded, we now have, in theory, our main menu, and behind that our game. So we actually need to remove our main menu. So we're going to go into instance, and we're going to say unload, and we're going to say scene list, and we're going to say main menu, and then we're good. So what is this doing, and why couldn't we unload menu beforehand? So if we unloaded menu beforehand, before loading level, you would just see a black screen. No UI, no nothing. By calling this function, this is asynchronous happening in the background, we wait until level loaded is complete. Once it's completed, it's going to be shown, and at the same instance that it's going to be shown, we're going to remove main menu. So main menu is going to be there until level is done loading, and then it switches. And that's all we need. So we need to hook into and set up our level here. So we're going to go into level, and we're going to open up tutorial one last time into here. We're actually going to grab tile maps from here. So basically we've grabbed everything, right? Like online has taken code networking, server spawned. The intro is taking main camera. The main menu, in our case, is taking canvas and event system. And then the game level takes the tile maps. And we'll unload this one last time. We'll rename it. And I'm just going to leave it there. All right, it's in its right spot, that sort of stuff. So if we actually go back to intro, everything is saved inside build settings, right? We set that up. Just double check, make sure. Otherwise you'll run into errors where I can't find it. Check the build settings. We're gonna open up intro. We're gonna hit start. We'll see that we've connected. We're going to hit join now, and you'll see that it's switched to game, right? So intro, online still there. We never really unload online. You might, in a case if you had to like relog or something, you might see that you unload online, but it's just handy to kind of have it in its own little thing. And you'll notice you'll notice that in server spawn objects, the player goes there, and if I hit the bullets and stuff, that's all working. They go into there. They're not necessarily in the level. The level just has the tile maps, that sort of stuff. And if you look into the server itself, we've did our proper switching. We haven't had to do anything. It's just dragging bullets and all that jazz. So how does this help us? Like I said at the beginning of the tutorial, now everything is separated. It's much easier to work with. So you might have in your intro, you might have a canvas for your loading screen. Because everything is in separate scenes, and this scene gets loaded and they get loaded additively, like my scene manager system was talking about, if you watch that video, we can now have like things like animated intro screens or loading screens, which is super awesome. We're not going to be doing that this tutorial, but I mean, you can totally do it. If you want to go look at it, basically you just hook up inside application manager. You just have reference to the game object and the canvas. Basically, you could do a black screen. And then in the scene manager, there's marks where you need to turn it on and off, and then you're good to go. And then you might make some adjustments when you're loading levels to be like, hey, when you load the game, I want to see you just send the boolean of true at the end there, and it will turn on the loading screen for you. So you won't notice it now because levels and stuff are super small, that they load super fast. But in the future, if you do like 3D geometry and that stuff, it does take a little bit. And for the user, it's a little bit nicer to look at something that's animating or loading progress bar, that sort of stuff. Okay, so in levels, this allows you to go and design levels that are very independent. Like, it's just art, right? Art, maybe you have barrels, you have gameplay mechanics that are level specific. Maybe you even go as far as if I create an empty and tag it as editor only, you could have like spawn points, like that sort of stuff that doesn't show in the editor, but you can see it when you're working. Lots of things. It allows you to, if you're working with other people could be working on levels, other people could be working on menus, other people can be working on all sorts of different stuff, and you don't mess each other up. So the drawback is, I mean, there's a little bit of setup stuff. There's a little bit extra scenes and stuff, but it makes working together, it makes working and reusable things much easier to do. So that's today's tutorial. Hope you guys liked it. Part 12 is going to be on. We're going to be doing the game lobby stuff. And then after that, we're going to start looking into some bot AI. Just getting a simple bot AI that's ran completely off the server going. And then we're going to start doing database stuff. So once we get in the database stuff, we'll be doing logins, friend lists, that sort of stuff. And we'll be going over an intro, basically how to install a database and that sort of jazz. So I hope you guys like that. Thank you guys for checking out the video. And as always, have a good one.
Just wanted to make sure I give a nice shout out to the people over on Patreon that help me support and help me do Twitch and YouTube tutorials. So thank you. And you guys will be in the following list. Jaron Frost. Hey everyone, if you guys liked the video, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, give it a like, and make sure to comment. It really helps out. And if you guys are looking to support the project further, I also have my Patreon, which will be linked in the description down below. Thank you, and have a good day.